We're in the town of Fairfax, just north of San Francisco Bay, and the Marin Museum of Bicycling. Otis.
Yes.
How in the world do we have a bicycling museum up here?
Well, if you see all these like posters, boards all the way across here, one of a museum, if you ever can go to the international, San Francisco International Airport, they've got incredible museum experts there. They have exhibitions at that international airport, and they did an exhibition from Repack to Rwanda. And Repack was the first mountain bike race in the world that was here in Fairfax. And they made these, and Joe Breeze, he will help start the museum, help curate the bikes that went in that museum, including my bike that I won Repack on, the first modern mountain bike that was built by Joe Breeze. And we had all these things, and they got done with it. It was an incredible job. They put out a book that had every single bike in there, all the descriptions. I brought my family there, and you had the little VIP.
It's at the airport.
Inside the international airport. These guys are unbelievable. Their attention to detail. So it got done, and Joe goes, so what are you going to do with all these pictures? So this is a picture up on Mount Tam near Pine Mountain. Yeah. And they go, we usually just cover them over. She goes like, would you like them? And Joe goes, yes. We'd like them. So we got moved there. I have an old 55 Dodge pickup truck. We put them in my pickup truck, and I live up here in Fairfax, up in the hills. And I asked my son Marcus, do you mind us storing these 36 things in your room for a while? And he's okay with it. Well, we were always thinking about doing a museum one day, and that kind of was the little thing that pushed us over the edge. Okay, now we can't talk about it anymore. We need to do it.
So we're at the birthplace of mountain biking. How far back does this go?
Joe Breeze and Mark Vendetti and I all started riding mountain bikes in October of 1973 together. Do you really want to say that that this was the birthplace of mountain biking? Because do you know how long ago the first bicycle was used?
You got me on that one.
200 years ago this year.
Wow.
Which actually the Draisine, this bike up here, which is our only replica in the museum, that was the first bicycle. So 200 years ago, this person put this together, and it was something where you walked along with it. It's basically a board with two wagon wheels, and this allowed you to bicycle. So were they using pavement roads back then?
200 years
and
ago?
super
I don't
freeways
think so.
and everything else? So you could kind of say that was the first mountain bike, right? Because that's the first thing that was on dirt.
And you guys are doing it back in the 70s,
Right.
which would mean that I'm talking to one of the founding fathers of modern day mountain biking?
Yes, in a sense, yes, you are.
So what classifies mountain biking from road biking and whatnot?
From going on the dirt. So we more looked at these bicycles. We're all road racers. So we're all racing on the road, riding thousands of miles a year. And that was our passion. Our passion's all things cycling.
Okay.
And so we started from Mark, brought us, he had done this thing with these Larkspur Canyon guys, riding off-road in Madrone Canyon in Larkspur, just 2 towns over. And these guys in high school would ride up Tam and ride down some trails and stuff like that. The difference was this happened so many places throughout the world.
Yeah.
And then once somebody got their driver's license and got a car, they're off to something else. We're involved in cycling, so this wasn't something that was just like a kid's thing. This was something we're doing for life. So we started riding these mountain bikes more as a diversion from racing on the road on these skinny tires like this bike here.
Yeah.
Very skinny silk tires.
Yeah, sure, like a road bike.
Drop handlebars. So this is a very special road bike from 1952. Thin seats. Hard riding. You're having shifting here that's not index shifting, so you have to kind of find the gear. And it's absolutely wonderful, but it's like nice. Mark introduced us to these bikes, and we'll see them later on, these old mountain bikes, which were very cool bikes from the 30s and 40s. And so it was a great off-season diversion, so that was the years when we had a drought up on Mount Tam. And so it was very easy to go ride in the wintertime and ride these bikes, and it was a great way to enjoy the area and do these trails. So you're here in this urban area, but in some sense it's still in the wilderness.
So take me back, Otis. How did the idea for the museum come about?
Well, that's well said, because we're standing in front of this collection called the Igler Collection.
Okay.
So this was a man that collected all these old bikes, and Joe and I heard about him, and he lived in Palo Alto, and we went to his house and visited him. This is back in the early 70s, and wanted to see these bikes. Here is actually the first pedal bike here, made by a guy named Michaud in the 1860s. And this is actually a real bike. So what he did was he forged this big metal here. He was a wagon maker. He put together these wheels and he put cranks and pedals on here, and he started riding it. Now you have to remember, how did you get around back then? You got around back by horse. So you had to feed a horse and do all these things. All of a sudden, most people didn't move very far from their own village. And so now all of a sudden you had a way to easily get from village to village. And this person sold many of these bikes.
You said 1860s?
1860, yes.
Okay.
So this is, first you had the Draisine, from 200 years ago. Now 1860s, somebody finally figured out to put pedals on it. Do you see a chain or any gears in this thing? No, it didn't exist. So how are we going to make this? How are we going to make this thing, which you think is pretty darn cool, go farther? Okay, what do? Let's see. Oh, we'll make the wheel bigger.
Holy mackerel!
So that's why you see these bikes, the high wheelers. So these are what was the next evolution in bicycles. Oh, and look here. There's bearings in here.
Oh,
This is the first patent. This is the grandfather or great-grandfather of all ball bearings in the world. Now, instead of you just having a channel here without bearings, he did bearings. This patent, this is what goes in cars and everything else. Remember, the best minds in the world were into bicycles. There were no cars. Have you ever heard of the Wright brothers?
yeah, here and there. Yeah.
They were bicycle builders. So this bearing, as you see right here, this is what's really the grandfather of all ball bearings. So they figured out how to make those balls and allow things to roll easier and not wear out. So now we went from hard rubber tires, and a guy named Dunlop came up with how to put air inside a tire. So now instead of it being so rough riding, you have this single tube tire, which is thick rubber with a valve filled with air, and now cycling took way off. And you can see this bike here. This is an 1894 Columbia bike made in America. And you can see how these are called seat stays and how they curve down so nicely.
Sure.
There is a bike that won the Tour de France in 2014. Look at the seat stays on that bike, these tubes. It looks just the same as the bike right here.
Okay, so this is great because we're talking
1894, and you're talking 2014. So now we tie into more modern bikes there, and here's a bike. Here's my 1941 Schwinn bicycle. So I actually won repack on this bicycle. And the reason they called the downhill repack was because every time you went down, it was a very steep downhill, all the grease would blow out of here and you'd have to repack the hub when you got down to the bottom.
Would this be considered a mountain bike at this point?
Well, this is what we considered mountain bikes. So here we do have bikes. These bikes were like paperboy bikes. Right, so these were all kids' bikes in the 30s and 40s. You see old movies and stuff. They're like, flinging newspapers.
Sure.
So these are the bikes we saw that Mark was riding before us in Larkspur. And he's like, this is you want to get pre-war bikes because they have a higher bottom bracket, so you can get over rocks and everything. You want to use a Morrow hub. Now your only braking is using your feet to brake. We later on found these cantilevers from the 1950s, and we put these on to help us stop also. So this is what we started riding on Mount Tam in the wintertime. Now for Joe and I, it was more like our cycling was just not for ourselves for racing, it was bicycles as transportation.
Sure.
We both tried to break the transcontinental record on a tandem. We tried to ride across the country in 10 days in the mid 70s to show if we can ride across the country in 10 days, you can go to the grocery store to get a gallon of milk. We had these old bikes from the 30s and 40s. Joe Greaves is a bicycle frame builder. That's the first modern mountain bike with all new tubing, designed to be a mountain bike, and all new parts.
What year are we talking about?
1978. Here's a bike that Jimmy Deaton, who's in that Mountain Bike Hall of Fame, won a race in Mammoth, the Kamikaze Downhill. That's a 66-tooth chainring. He was clocked at 59.5 miles an hour going down, if you've ever been to the Mammoth ski area, from the very top going down that road.
Oh my gosh, is that a record?
It was then, yes, certainly was a record.
I saw a bike when we walked in that I think it fits my...
Oh, my Ducati?
No, not the Ducati. No, this one right here.
Oh, these are totally the cycle trucks.
The Schwinn, look at that thing. This is like the Cadillac, right?
Well, this is the fact, these were built for the auto factories.
Oh, really?
For people to move stuff around really quickly. part of the reason we have this museum, it's not just a museum, this is a living, breathing thing. It's a cultural center. We have talks here. So we're really trying to bring out, why do you want to ride a bike? See the history of it and how the difference it can make in your life.
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much, Otis, for having us. And so can I take this out for a spin?
You can take it if you want, sure. You're welcome to.
Nice.